You good?
Are we good?
We live? Thank you. Well, I'd like to welcome you to this special call, board meeting of the Garrard County Board of Education. I'd like to at this time call the meeting to order, and item A is for a moment of silence, and while you use that time, as you see fit, I'm going to pray. Father, I come to you, Lord, to thank you for this time we spend together, Lord, and as a board, we've got some very important decisions to make tonight, Lord. We don't take it lightly. Thank you, Lord, for our architects and our construction managers, and Lord, for what they're going to share with us tonight, Lord. I pray that we would take that information, and Lord, that as a board, that we'll make the best decision. That's the best decision is for our children. And Lord, I just lift up our colleague, Lord, as he and his family even deal with the loss of his grandmother. I pray that you give them everything they need, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And we'll praise you for it in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, if you're able, stand with me and say the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. You may be seated. And item C is to adopt the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Dr. Lamb made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hurd, second. All in favor, let me know by lifting hand. All board members were in favor. The agenda is adopted. And item 2 is to approve a field trip request.
Garrard County, or the Garrard Middle School academic team needs to do an overnight trip for their competition in Louisville. As you all know, trip is an overnight trip or an out-of-state trip. It requires board approval. So it's my recommendation that you approve the GMS academic team overnight field trip for competition in Louisville.
Good, thank you. You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do I have a motion?
I move we approve the
Ms. Davis made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Smith seconded. All in favor, let me know by lifting hand. All board members were in favor. Item 2 is approved. Item 3 is to approve a bridge replacement on the secondary farm.
So we have a secondary farm that has a bridge that needs some repair, and the farm committee has recommended that. It's a joint venture between us and Bluegrass Bottling. The cost to the board and to the district would be $2,500. The cost to our partner would be $2,500. It's my recommendation that you all approve this agreement to replace the bridge on our secondary farm.
Thank you, sir. You've heard the recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All right, Mr. Hurd made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Davis, second. Do you have any questions or comments? All in favor, let me know by lifting hand. All board members were in favor. Item 3 is approved. Now we come to something very important. Item 4 is a construction update from Top Sonographer and Trace Creek. Gentlemen, floor is yours.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Stoll, members of the board. We got some tough subjects to cover tonight. I recall when we had interviewed with you all prior to getting hired, one of the things, at least I said in my speech, was that good or bad, he was going to get a straight and honest answer over everything. And that's what I intend to do tonight. So, before we get too far into the numbers, let's just kind of start at the top and work our way through this. At least for the last figures that was made known to us, we were under the impression there was a bond capacity amount of $36,200,000, just somewhere around that figure. Now that would be your total project cost. You're going to have soft costs that come along with that. That's going to be, the CM fee, the architectural fee, plant or technology, computers, plan distribution, all kinds of different things. Those are what we're referring to as soft costs. Typically, those run somewhere between 18 to 22% of total funds available on the project. Just using 18% kind of low as our placeholder for that, that would translate out to about 6.5 million. And I take that number and subtract it from the bond capacity, and that gives us what we would expect as the money that we have available for true construction costs. So that kind of summarizes the first top three items there. So we got kind of three total projects that we're looking at right now. Garrard County High School Phase 2, that was the early site development that we're currently moving dirt on now. That figure that you see of 3.9 million is the actual cost of construction that's in place currently. We have performed two estimates looking at the current design for phases 3 and 4. Phase 3 is all of your field improvements, your football field, baseball, softball, tennis courts, track and field, all of those amenities. We are forecasting $21.2 million for the entire package as it's currently shown. Phase 4 for the gymnasium, we are right now tracking about 21.9 million. Now, when you add both of those, all three projects together, that would give us a construction cost of 47.1 million. Just looking at what the bonding availability is and what we're forecasting or expecting to see, we're going to have a deficit of about 17 million. That needs to be the, point of discussion tonight, because, we can go through different value engineering practices, right? And try to get costs down for you all. But we have such a dramatic and large amount of ground to cover that the fields that you all would be envisioning for this community and for the gymnasium as well would be stripped down to such a point that I don't believe would ultimately satisfy your all's needs or desires. So that's kind of where we're at tonight. And in particular, what we would be interested in finding out is which route do we, would we prefer to go? Would we like to get everything that we would like to have in the field side of the project? Would we like to have everything that we would like to see in the gymnasium side of the project? Or, are you guys open to stripping some of these jobs down to, a smaller portion of each? Just running the figures, if you was to, the first phase is pretty much already kind of set in stone. We're out there pushing that dirt now. If looking at phases 2 and 3 combined, you'd have a cost of around 25.2 million, and you'd have an excess left over of about 4.4 million. If we took the gym route with all the bells and whistles, it'd be about 25.8 million, and that would leave you with another 3.8. What we're here to tell you tonight is I don't see a feasible path forward to get you both jobs and everything you want for both of them now. And I came here tonight to kind of discuss the bidding cycle, because if we elect not to take one to bid, there would be potential savings on our side of our CM fee that I don't see both jobs, necessarily happening. I feel like the expense of our fee to put it out to bid would more or less be a waste of your all's money. And that's kind of where we're at right now, total picture. Bradley, would you like to add?
Well, yeah, I'll build on that a little bit. I've got to commend Trace Creek for bringing it up and making this, what we would consider in our industry a hard decision, tell you not to do something that could or could not benefit us. We're right there on board with them. We've had conversations all along the way. We've watched the numbers as they've continued to escalate, no fault to the district, no fault to the design. While we are coming out of COVID, the building industry as a whole still isn't in full recovery mode yet. So ultimately, this is not the prime time to be doing some of these projects. When we first came to you, we interviewed with you, we set the initial project scope on target. We were looking at something that was in that $33 to $35 million range. We've come back, we've talked to you multiple times about the process that, costs were escalating, things, not the design-driven cost. Like we were putting things into the project that weren't asked for, weren't needed, weren't wanted as part of the project, weren't initially discussed, but the cost of those materials have continued to escalate with the inflation factor. So when Trace Creek came to me, they were talking about, hey, we think this is something that the board should consider. If we're not going to move forward or not going to be able to afford to, we'd rather know up front so that we're not putting out to bid and expending that cost. I went back and looked at what we initially said, and because our work as architects and engineers is at the finish line, so it goes with the design aspect of it. I worked with all my consultants and said, well, okay, if this board chooses not to bid, we'll move our fee proposal back to the initial estimate we gave you a year and a half ago. So in an effort, just like they are, to not expend money that, I don't want to say you don't have it, you do have it, but to just expend money on a project that we jointly feel like you won't be able to afford as they are designed. So we're both trying to look at and say if there is no way that both projects could go, then we need to come to you and say, this is the estimates for them. You select which one you want to go out to bid, and then we'll kind of hold back and wait on the other and see. We've run the numbers every which way we can, assuming that I'm gonna speak from my side of the story. If Fields and Facilities were to go out to bid, and we pulled back and just waited on the gymnasium, seeing what our numbers fleshed out to be for Fields and Facilities, between them not processing it and us reclining back to that initial estimate we gave, that is saving the district $361,000 of fee, if we don't put it out to bid, rather than you putting it out to bid and then realizing we can't afford to bid it. We're so far off from the number without some sort of intervention on your end. We don't see that it's a benefit to put that project out to bid. It's only going to cost you more money to do so. So we'd rather see y'all save that $360,000 and hold on to it, or put it towards something else, another project to help the district out. So we're just trying to make you aware of that aspect of it. So I think this is more of a kind of a question and answer from us to y'all.
All right. Board members?
Well, obviously, from my standpoint, I can't speak for the rest of the board. we were hopeful to get it all done at one time, and obviously you're asking us to pick and choose. And that's really quite a tough decision.
Yes.
And in its own way, even though it's a tough decision, not being able to do all, it's an easy decision to do what is right. Reflecting back upon our meetings that we had with the community and everything, and we went to the various sites, it seemed like what we got was the attitude that they would prefer the stadium. I guess where I'm coming from there is, I want to do what they want to do. One question I had in mind is, when you were breaking it down and everything, did you ever break down on what it would cost to build like the softball field and the baseball field?
Yeah.
There's something separate there?
So on that second sheet that I had provided you with, I kind of give you a breakdown of various costs. And down towards the bottom there, you're going to see athletic equipment pertaining to different fields. Now, I do have a athletic surfacing that's just probably a quarter of a third way down. That's kind of your sods for your fields, your turf for the football stadium. So you'd have to add a few of these different line items up, but yet
I was going to depend on you to come up with a figure on how much it
Well,
costs to build a baseball field and then a softball.
give me a couple minutes just to add each one of these up for you.
So I'd like to leave it in the hands of the experts.
Sure.
While he's putting that, I'll speak from the hip. Based on some of our initial numbers, the baseball, softball portion of the complex is about a third of the overall cost of the complex out there. So if you're looking at it in the terms of 22 million, and he may speak to that, I'm gonna say it's probably in that $7 million range. Still not enough to get us into the gym project. He'll give you some harder numbers on that. What I can go ahead and add to the conversation is, let's look at, again, and I'm not discounting that this is not a hard decision. I realize it is a very hard decision for this board. The gym has always been designed from the beginning as an option. We knew going in very, very early into the project that we may face something like this. So we've always made it independent of fields and facilities. It's its own project. It stands alone. It's been designed in such a way that fields and facilities could go or the gym could go. They weren't dependent on one another. So from a design aspect, from a buildability aspect, you could choose one or the other. And we did that so that first you have the choice now for what to start with, and then if we get into the process and the sale for the project goes well, or you continue to get more offers, we could be halfway through one project or towards the end of that project, and possibly we gained enough bond to start the next phase. Or we could be a year after and we could start. The drawings and all that, they're good, they're yours to own. And the project will be there, whichever one you select, whichever you don't select, that project still exists. It's ready to go. It's not like we're starting over from scratch. The unique thing you're in, y'all were before 678. 678 is what allowed all these other districts to do all these other athletic facilities. You've held on to a DFP that you've not updated now, I believe, it's still in almost 12 years?
8 years.
8 years, okay, so it has had one update.
2015.
Okay, so it's had one update since the high school was built. And in that, it gave y'all almost special permission is what we took it to mean, and what y'all had worked out with the state to build the fields and facilities where others couldn't. 678, in one form or another, will become revised in the next session. So there's a limited window that all these other districts are building within. We don't know what 678 will be, whether it'll be fully extended, whether it'll be modified and revised, but there is the potential that it could just go away and fields and facilities like yours trying to build wouldn't be allowed again. The gymnasium, on the other hand, is a deficiency, according to KDE, that your high school has. And I don't use the deficiency in the word of a negative in that sense. It's something that your high school is entitled to have, just has not been built yet. So you can always go back and add that gymnasium, whereas fields and facilities will be harder to do. Because you've not updated your DFP. If you remember back, I think in January, we did a kind of an assessment across your district of your needs. You currently have, let me make sure my numbers, between 65 and $80 million worth of identified need, construction. But your DFP shows a need of only about $40 million. So for 8 years, money's been left on the table at the state because we were holding on to fields and facilities, because that was y'all's magic bullet, as it was, to be able to get those. And if we can get that off the plate, we can redo your DFP, increase your need, and then your offers of assistance from the state would increase, which rebuilds your bond potential faster. Just throwing that out there.
So my concern is being if we didn't, just the gymnasium was the biggest monetary item, that if we didn't build it now, that we would probably never get to build it. So just what I heard you say though, is that's not the case. That
From a monetary standpoint, yes, it's more money than fields and facilities. But it is, when they look at model program for schools, a gymnasium is part of the model program. You've never built the gymnasium for Garrard County High School. Now, the caveat to that is, would you be able to build a 3,800 seat gymnasium with all the bells and whistles? That's a discussion to be had in the future.
Okay.
Whereas the model program says you'll get one that's sized for your appropriate number of students. The gymnasium that we set out to build with your direction was exceeded model program, but it was an allowable thing through 678. So you would always be able to go back and build a gymnasium. Is it this exact gymnasium? Until we get down and see what KDE allows us to do at that point, I can't promise you. But, and I don't know if I'm making things worse or better as far as clear as mud go.
I'd like to say that when we made this decision a few years ago, it was not made lightly. It was studied, and, or at least from my standpoint, it was studied. We knew it was an aggressive bid, but we felt with the economy being as it was at that time, we had prepared ourselves to be able to handle it. However, we're all hopefully halfway intelligent human beings and know that life doesn't always go as we hope to plan. It seems that as our economy ebbs and flows, our high school seems to be in that ebb and flow. You know, when we were building the high school, we were looking at possibility of recessions, and, you know, here we are doing this, another big project, and, you know, the economy is where it is. Individuals have faced this even in their homes. They may have gotten a home loan at a cheap price, and then now they're looking at having to pay more interest. It's the same thing for schools. So I'm not totally surprised that we were going to have to do this. I think it was wise on all the guidance that we received, that the projects were broken into two separate, as you said, one the gym was sort of a standalone. We were able to speak with the public to see what they had wished for the students and for our community. So this is not a total surprise. I think at this point, we are to be good stewards of the financial resources that have been given to the board, and that we make those decisions. So, but on that hand, whatever project we choose tonight, I'm interested in how quickly can we start the next project. And you sort of alluded to that as you get into the project, if funds become available, if we can bid. I think the whole project is going to take several years, maybe?
We've got you playing on those fields in 24.
Okay,
The
so,
first football game will be
In 24, okay, so a year plus, so, but starting from the groundwork, I'm almost a 2-year project. So, you know, is there any possibility, and we don't make this, you know, could we maybe have the possibility of some more bonding and 24, where we could go on and start working on the gym? Ideally, I'm thinking of it as an administrator, it would be so nice if we could get all that stuff on the outside. I know Mr. Anderson would agree with this, that the kids aren't having to walk through construction and with the parking lot as it is with the gym. It'd be so nice if all of that could have been completed, even if the inside weren't, so that they wouldn't have to have more years of disruption on the campus. But I'm not sure, and I'm sure you all will minimize that to any extent you can, because you want a school day for the students to be as normal and as good and smoothly as, go as smoothly as possible. So, that would be the ideal situation, but I'm not sure that that's feasible either. So just sort of brainstorming some thoughts and feelings that what would be good for our students on the campus. Anytime you're doing construction on campus, it's tough.
So, I'll keep talking if you want me to, if you've got an input, I know I can talk.
I don't have this to the ability to break out some of these buildings. I mean, I got a number, but it's not all-inclusive, and I'm just not confident feeding you something that I'm not confident about myself to break down to that level. What was your guess?
I said about 7.
Yeah, so without getting into kind of a mechanical, electrical build, and the press boxes buildings, I was at about 3.5 million. By the time I would put those in, I would imagine I'd be around where he has indicated, but I don't have an exact number, I apologize.
So to go to what you were alluding to, we looked at early in this part of this discussion was, could we do fields and facilities and put the shell of the gymnasium up? And our only concern there is it then almost ties this board to spending every penny they've got in facility money towards completing that project for however many years it takes you. So you may have other schools and other needs and things that have come up that we don't know about at this point, and not be able to respond to that in the way you would like to, because you're still trying to finish this project. So it'd be like buying a building on a credit card. It's, you know, you're always paying it down.
Well, that's a thought. And the other thing is, I don't know that we really want to go back and strip it to bare bones. We had a dream as a community. We shared that dream with the community, and I'm one person that I don't think.
You know, just in my own personal opinion, there's so much ground to cover. This would not look anything like what any of you would have envisioned if you were to go that route.
I do have a couple of questions, and I appreciate everything that you guys have said too, because it really helps to make decisions, and tough decision to make, but I'm not surprised we're making it. I think I even said a year and a half ago, we were going to be making it very soon, because we didn't see bonding potential then to do both projects, and now here we are, and we don't have bonding potential to do both, just as we said we would. But I want to make sure that I understand. On the document that you gave us, you have broken down 2 different options here. Phase 2 is a go, because that's what we're currently doing. The phase 2 and the 3 combines the athletic complex with the phase 2, which is the earthworks project. And there's a $4.4 million savings. Does that 4.4 also include the $361,000 fee savings? Or would we be adding that 361 to that?
You'd add that.
You would add that. What you're looking at there is direct construction costs.
So it would really be a I'm gonna say 4.5, I'm gonna round up a little, 4.5 plus the 361,000 savings.
That is correct.
So in that case, we could add that 361,000 to both the 4.5 and down, where if we did decide as a board to go with phases 2 and 4, the performance gym, it would be 3.8 plus the 361,000.
Correct.
Okay. So then my next question was, I need to make sure that I really understand what our options are from the KDE allowable perspective of it. So we have, like you said, kind of special permission to allow us to build this athletic complex that is, I'm gonna call it state of the art, and includes all of the things that we know our community wants and that we want for our kids to have. We have that special permission now, but if we don't act on it now, we may lose that as an option.
In the letter that y'all received, I'm asking questions to make sure, the letter you received that gave y'all before 678 came along, did they put any kind of time limit on when y'all had to complete that?
I'd have to go back to read it to be sure. My suspicion is that what they've said is we have this until we do a new DFP.
DFP.
And I believe when we do the new DFP, if we were asking for something, we'd have to go back and make that same request.
If we opened the DF, if nothing changed, we opened a new DFP process, fields and facilities would go down to category 5, which is discretionary. The gymnasium would stay in like a 2, a category 2, because it's a deficiency to the building. If 678 went away, the gym would still exist up there and still be able to use bonded monies. The fields would not.
Okay.
That's what you're asking.
Well, I just want to make sure that we don't make a mistake here that prohibits us from ever being able to get this magnificent complex that we really want for the kids. And that's what I'm afraid is going to happen. And what we know is that the performance gymnasium is considered, it's almost like an expectation that a district would provide that to their students. We're expected to provide that. I think you're using the word discretionary, or no, have I got that?
Discretionary is where the fields and facilities would go.
Efficient.
Deficiency.
Deficiency, okay, not
Yes.
discretionary, but deficiency. In essence, in our district, we're at a deficit right now of resource to our students because we don't have the performance gym. And we're always gonna have KDE support to provide that because it's a deficit.
You'll have the KDE support to provide an adequate gymnasium for the size of your student population. Where we use 678 to your advantage is it allowed us to make the standard high school gymnasium bigger to meet the seating occupancy that you as a board directed us to provide, which is what your community told you that you wanted, which takes you up to I think let's just call it 3,000 seats. That's in excess to what a standard gymnasium for your size district would require in a high school. It's honestly larger than most gymnasiums anywhere in the high school, in the state. I can go back to some current projects. Our Scott County and Great Crossings over there, those 2 high schools, they seat about 1,800 with their much larger student population. So that's where we use 678 to your advantage on the gym. If 678 went away and they just didn't exist anymore, you may be confined to building a more standard high school gymnasium that seats the student population and is equipped for that. Less of the large, I think it's listed on here as 54, but I assume that's the second level. We're building a much larger gymnasium than what would be normal for the high school. If you'd built this gym, I've got the original drawings. The gym that we're building or have shown drawings for takes up about the same amount of square footage as your gym and auditorium were supposed to when the school was originally designed. They occupy the same square footage on the property.
And what we have currently designed includes classrooms and educational components. It's more than just a performance gym. It has educational space in it. And so that also helps us with funding. And so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I heard you say, if we were to choose to go with the phase 2 and 3, which is the athletic complex, if that's what we chose to do, then we redid our district's facilities plan and we demonstrated greater need than what the district facilities plan currently demonstrates, then that opens the door for more funding and more support from the state.
It gives you a bigger piece of the funding pie.
Yeah.
Essentially, it would almost double your piece of the pie. It's not gonna magically produce $17 million worth of bonding potential, but it's, the offer of assistance will get larger, so your ability to bond will increase. And Kelly would be the best to talk you through that scenario, but from.
I'm here if you, Brad, if you'd like me to talk on the bonding piece.
Sure. Scared me to death.
We know.
Sorry. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I'm sorry, I'm driving.
What? You're talking on the phone and driving?
Yeah, I know. I had it committed to a meeting before your all's meeting, but yes, he's explaining it correctly. So every biennium, the school facilities construction gives offers of assistance based on need. The larger need you show, the bigger slice of the pie. So your next set of offers will come in January of 24, and based on the district facility plan of record as of June 30th of 23. So that's the reason why you would want to reconvene your facility plan and show a bigger need. You're likely your next set of offers, whenever you get a new district facility plan, will put you all able to get a bigger slice of the pie when they allocate offers of assistance. And something to note, offers of assistance from SFCC can only be used on priority 1 and 2 projects on your district facility plan. If I heard Brad correctly, the gym would still be priority 2, so eligible for use of this additional funding.
Kelly, I want to make sure I heard that right. So the gymnasium would be eligible?
If yes, ma'am. If it would be priority 2, as Brad indicated, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The one thing I will note is that my understanding, we worked with some the design projects that are outside the model procurement, and there is a way to do that has usually that you have to commit a general fund for whatever's over 20%. Brad, that might be the right number, but if it sizes outside 20% of the model procurement, the district still can explore that project, but that difference would be responsible from the general fund, is my understanding from previous projects.
So, and to go back, you were talking about the educational components. Your DFP, the plan for your building from go has always had multiple options where you could build on those spaces. I know in our first conversation with Superintendent Stoll about this, the loss of that multi-purpose educational component was a heartbreak, because that's a need that the school has to be able to teach a larger number of students in the same classroom. That's another project that it did not have to be tied to the gymnasium. We tied it in because it made sense, but you could go to any of the other wings of your building and do that very similar project, that piece of that project on a wing of one of the buildings. It did not have to become part of the gym. We did it because it made sense at the time. So it's not like you'd have to do one or the other or both together. That can continue to break out, and we can identify those things in your plan. To Kelly's point, it has to be the June 23rd of the June of 23 to hit the 24 biennial. So coming out of this meeting, we would want to almost, if that was the way the board wanted to go, we would want to almost start wrapping into starting a DFP process to be able to hit that deadline, so that y'all could be wrapped into the next biennium give with your higher need. That's something else to think about.
You have any?
So on the gym project, if we chose to go with the 2 and 3 combined for the athletic facilities, so you're saying that it's a need for our school, and that they would allocate the size of it based on student population. So are we saying that basically we take the plans we have right now with 30,000 seat gym, is that just shrinking the capacity of the gym, or are we saying they're gonna say, well, you get a 1,200 seat gym with none of the extras in there as well, or how does that?
So that becomes kind of the unknown discussion. until we get down and have that conversation with Katie at that time. How much of that set of drawings for the gym can we use? I think there's an argument to be made that we've come this far. If the district could afford it at that time, then you make the argument to Katie, but we've already got this. If it's an issue of we want to build and we want to get the high school a gym and we want to do it at a lower number and we're willing to redesign, then we work with you through that process, because you're entitled to a redesign with us to help you get back into that project, what you need it to be at that time. We would work with you through that process because we've done a lot of that legwork in the beginning. We'd have to work through it, and I don't have good answers for you on that aspect of it until we sit down with KD to talk about it, so that you know your current. Do y'all call that a practice gym?
Auxiliary gym,
Auxiliary
the
gym?
one that's at the high school currently?
Yes. So that utilized, in order, from best I could tell from all the documentation I have on the building, when we do a model program, KD sets out a model program, the district, the community is allowed to have locally identified program space. This board, or the board prior to you, determined that that's where they would utilize their locally identified programs. Normally, we would take that and add it in to a normal size gym and make that gym larger. So we'd have to have that discussion with KDE of how do we get more of what we want, since we've already used up that space over here. That's the 678 gave us that flexibility to go ahead and just kind of do it. And I don't know where 678 will stand when we're ready to approach this again.
If I can just say one thing about 678, I think what you said right there at the end is something that everybody needs to understand. We don't know what's going to happen with 678. We believe the Kentucky Department of Education would like to see 678 go away because it allows them to maintain positions within the department. 678 wasn't passed by KDE, it was passed by legislators. The legislators could continue to keep 678 in place. It could be possible, I'm not saying it's what you make your decision based on, but it could be possible that when the board was ready to move forward with the gym, that we could still continue to use 678 if it was still in place, and you could continue to have the gym that's there. The downside would be 678 goes away and you don't have that, and then we have to go through a process of petitioning and asking and doing some things of that nature. And maybe we get back to that, maybe we don't. That's the unknown piece of this, like all of it has been. I just want to be clear that we don't know today what's going to happen with 678, and Brad's giving me the right advice about it, to assume that it doesn't continue to be there, because you don't want to be told that it's going to be there and it's not. So if it is, then that's advantageous to us in the future.
Okay, I'm gonna throw a little kink in this thing. Let's say, and I agree, in our community meetings we had, the majority of people that attend those meetings overwhelmingly wanted 2 and 3. We didn't call it 2 and 3 then. With that, could we throw in the bus garage? Would that hurt us down the road?
It would, so the bus garage, it would, let's look at the numbers that Trace Creek's provided you. If you went with 2 and 3, it's showing about $4.4 million.
That's square footage
Huh?
for that bus garage.
I don't know that we have a square footage. My closest representation was what I told you back when we interviewed. It's the Washington County Bus Garage. That was 3 years ago.
I think it was 3 million or something.
It was 3.2.
Something like that.
Yeah. So working the magic numbers, I'm assuming it costs more than 3.2. Is it feasible? We would have to explore that. Your question there becomes, and that is a complete district priority. If that's where you wanted to move to next, we're happy to explore those numbers for you and give you the estimates on that and give you that decision. Or give you that recommendation of here's what we think it would cost. And we can go down that route. But once we get through this decision that's before you tonight, you're left with whatever comes from the bond sale. That pot of money is something you could hold on to and kind of see where the project goes and what the bonding potential does. You could start another project with it that's a bus garage or a renovation of this or that, or you could just hold on to it till the very end of the project and see where you're at and then grow. Once you start eating into that, you get farther and farther away from coming back to whatever project you decided not to pick up tonight. So that's completely the five of you's decision there. We'll provide you whatever information you need to help make that decision.
Anybody else?
I think just as an overview of the review is the fact that, we need to make a decision tonight to be good stewards of our resources, but that because of the pre-planning we have done and the fact that everything is drawn and ready to go, we're ready for the next phase. So as soon as our financial resources become more favorable, we don't have to stop but the traction's still there. We can keep going. So I want people to realize that this may be a one step back, but that we're ready to go as soon as the economy opens and the bidding and the bonding potential increases, and then we're ready to go and move on it. If that's correct, that wants to add to that.
Well, so then if we vote, let's say the board votes to go ahead and go to bid on 2 and 3, how soon would it be before we would have the bids in and stuff? What's a good timeline?
I'll take this. So we got the drawings, specifications ready to go. Tracy Creek will probably need about 1 more week to finalize everything before it would be ready to be posted for advertisement. I would expect about a 4-week bid cycle. So effectively, whatever decision you all will make tonight, we would be looking at an April 5th bid date. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
And like I said, that would be bids in hand. We'd, of course, take a few days to kind of sift through and make sure everybody's valid and can perform the job for you all.
So, and Kelly can jump back on if I say something incorrect here, because I've spoken with her multiple times since we became aware of this. Garrard would come to that bid opening and would immediately start the process of figuring out what the bonding schedule would be. I think when we talked earlier today, she was thinking early May for that. So the bonding could happen at that point and be ready to move forward with the project. And then as Brad was pointing out, we would still be starting to work on the new DFP to try to meet the deadlines around that to get to that location, being able to get increased numbers when the state allocates additional revenue moving forward as well. We'll also entertain, maybe it's not something to really talk about, but we'll also entertain the idea of having conversations with legislators to see if there could be an exceptional allocation of funds or something that could help us out with the project as we're moving forward. There's a zero guarantee of anything there, but we're certainly not above asking for assistance or help or dollars from our legislators and seeing if we can move some things along in a different fashion. Understand every district out there would like to do that, and we get that. But speaking on behalf of our district, the district has done a lot over the course of time to allocate funds for this kind of thing. You've established 3 nickels, and many districts have never had communities who've done that. So the community should be entitled to some of this stuff. If that means asking somebody for some additional exceptional help, then we would be willing to do that as well. Again, no promises to anybody, but we would certainly extend the opportunity for people to step forward and help with projects like this. So.
all right.
You ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion, under item 6, select and approve plans submitted by high school project. So what's the motion?
I would like to make the motion that we move forward with phases 2 and 3.
Heard the motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, is there any further discussion on this matter? All in favor, let me know by lifting your hand. All board members were in favor, which brings us to item 7, approve bidding of projects selected by the Board of Education. Do I have a motion to approve the bidding process? Just one at a time.
So moved.
Sure. Make the motion, do I have a second?
I'll say.
Okay, Ms. Day, do you have any questions on this? Motion and second. All in favor, let me know by lifting your hand. All board members were in favor. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you so much. The decision has been made. The ball is in your court.
And I would just, if it's okay,
Sure.
I just want to thank you all for being so transparent and honest with us, and patient with us, because it's been a challenge. Both of these projects are so important to our community. And it hasn't been easy. I acknowledge that, but I sure do thank you for being so patient with us.
I'd like to thank you all for being kind to me today. I was very, not looking forward to tonight's meeting, but
Yeah, I told him last Thursday, he was
Oh.
in trouble.
You had a question? Do we look that mean?
no, it's just the whole process.
I think we're blessed to have a good team all the way around, with everyone working together, wanting what's best for our students.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And for our community.
Thank you.
So right before we get to the adjournment, even though we can't change an agenda, this doesn't require a change, but we'd like to take a moment to recognize something that happened last Friday night at the Kentucky School Board Association. Most of you know that the School Board Association is actually Garrard West. We had everybody there. The band kicked everything off. We had 2 of our groups there representing CTE, both from the ATC side and from the high school side. And then our arts department produced a banner as well. And then you all were able to attend the celebration that Clotfelter-Samakar hosted, celebrating their 70th anniversary, and they had a few drawings. And I think Dr. Lamb picked the right ticket and received a $500 scholarship that will end up going to one of our CTE students at the high school. So we'll need Mr. Anderson about what that looks like. So earlier, Mr. Lamb suggested maybe we could put a couple more zeros on that. Maybe that turns us into a little more bonding potential than we have walking in today. So if Samakar wants to do that, we'll be fine with that. We won't hesitate. But again, we just wanted to make sure that we said thank you to them for providing that.
Sure.
I do also want to say thank you to Trace Creek, to Samakar, to Clotfelter-Samakar, and to Baird and Kelly for being here tonight, allowing us to adapt to our meeting for what we needed and providing you all with the information to help you make your decision. So
Thank you, appreciate that, Mr. Smith.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hurd, second, all in favor? All were in favor, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.